Hyderabad was waking up to another busy Saturday morning. The glass towers of high-tech city reflected the golden sunrise, while cafes slowly filled with entrepreneurs discussing valuations, funding rounds, and the next big idea. In one such cafe sat Alok at 34. He was a senior UX designer in a respected technology company. His life was simple. An old leather notebook rested beside a cup of black coffee. He preferred writing ideas with a fountain pen instead of typing them into a laptop. He wasn't waiting for success to notice him. He was simply enjoying a quiet morning. Just then, the cafe door opened. A confident voice echoed across the room. Alok, it was Karan, his college friend, after nearly 4 years. The years had changed him. An impeccably tailored suit, a luxury watch, polished shoes, the keys of a brand new Mercedes casually twirling around his finger. He didn't enter the room, he seemed to own it. The two friends embraced warmly. Years disappeared in a single hug. As coffee arrived, Karan pulled out his phone. Photographs of a luxurious penthouse, a stunning corporate office, magazine interviews, international conferences, award ceremonies. Finally, with a quiet smile, he said, "We've just closed our Series B funding, $12 million. Alok smiled sincerely. "I'm proud of you." Karan leaned back confidently. "You remember those hostel nights? We always dreamed of making it big." He paused. "I finally made it." For a brief moment, Alok looked at his old notebook, and then at Karan's shining world without realizing it. A tiny seed of comparison had been planted. That evening, the atmosphere inside Alok's apartment couldn't have been more different. There were no expensive paintings, no designer furniture, just books, indoor plants, family photographs, and the comforting aroma of freshly brewed tea. His wife Ananya sat beside him as they reviewed their monthly savings and household budget. After a long silence, Alok finally spoke. "I met Karan today. He has everything we once dreamed about. The funding, the luxury apartment, the recognition." He smiled faintly. "Sometimes I wonder whether I've played life too safely. I've spent years avoiding unnecessary loans, saving patiently and planning for tomorrow, while people around me seem to be racing far ahead." Ananya listened quietly. Then she asked a question that surprised him. "Alok, when you came home today, were you unhappy with your own life? Or simply impressed by his?" The room became silent. Because those were two very different questions. After a few moments, she smiled. "My father used to tell me something. Brass often complains that gold receives too much attention, but gold never argues with brass. It knows that time eventually introduces both." Alok looked through the window. Outside, the city lights sparkled brilliantly. Inside, something far more valuable had begun to glow. 2 months later, Karan invited Alok and Ananya to the grand launch of his company's newest venture. The event was held in one of Hyderabad's finest five-star hotels. Crystal chandeliers illuminated the ballroom. Large LED screens flashed inspirational slogans. Investors mingled confidently. Champagne glasses sparkled beneath the lights. Everything about the evening whispered one word: success. Karan walked onto the stage to thunderous applause. His presentation was brilliant, his confidence effortless. Every sentence received applause, every smile attracted another camera. For a while, even Alok found himself wondering whether this was what success truly looked like. Later that night, he quietly stepped onto the terrace for some fresh air. The noise of the celebration faded behind him. Only the distant sounds of the city remained. Then he heard a familiar voice. Hidden in the shadows stood Karan. His jacket had been removed, his tie hung loose, his confident expression had disappeared. He was speaking urgently on the phone. "Number, please, just another 30 days. I'll sign personal guarantees. If payroll is delayed again, the investors will walk away." Alok froze. He had never heard fear in Karan's voice before. At that very moment, Karan turned. Their eyes met just 1 second. The confident entrepreneur disappeared. Then, almost instantly, the smile returned. The shoulders straightened. The mask was back. "Karan," Alok asked gently, "are you all right?" Karan laughed, perhaps a little too loudly. "I'm on top of the world. It's just the pressure that comes with success." Alok smiled politely. But somewhere deep inside, he knew he had just seen something the glittering ballroom had carefully hidden. A week passed. Life in Hyderabad moved on at its usual pace, but Alok found himself thinking about Karan more often than he cared to admit. That Saturday morning, his mother handed him an old family gold chain. "It belonged to your grandfather," she said with a smile. "Take it to Vikramji in the old city. Your cousin's wedding is next week, and it could use a little polishing up." Alok rode through the narrow lanes near Charminar, where history seemed to breathe through every stone. The glittering skyscrapers of Cyberabad felt like a different world here. Tucked between two old buildings stood a modest jeweler shop with a weathered wooden sign that simply read, Vikram Jewelers. Since 1958, inside there were no dazzling display lights or luxurious interiors, just wooden cabinets, brass weighing scales, a small blue flame, and an elderly jeweler whose calm eyes reflected decades of experience. Vikramji greeted Alok warmly and examined the old chain with great care. Instead of polishing it immediately, he held one end gently over the blue flame. Alok instinctively leaned forward. Aren't you worried it might get damaged? He asked. The old jeweler smiled without looking up. Real gold doesn't fear fire, my son. A few moments later, he removed the chain and rubbed it gently against a black touchstone. A rich golden streak appeared across its surface. Only then did he look at Alok and say, People think fire destroys gold. He paused. But fire never destroys purity. It simply reveals it. He pointed toward a tray filled with brightly polished imitation ornaments displayed near the entrance. They sparkle more than this old chain. They attract more attention. But place them in the fire, and their borrowed shine disappears. Then he gently placed the ancestral chain beside them. This old chain has survived 3 generations because it never depended on appearances. It was always gold. As Alok looked at the glowing streak on the touchstone, an unexpected image flashed through his mind. Karan, standing alone on the hotel terrace, trying desperately to protect a life that seemed perfect from the outside. 3 weeks later, the illusion finally shattered. It was an ordinary Monday morning. Alok had barely settled into his office when mobile phones across the floor began buzzing one after another. Conversation stopped, people gathered around television screens. The headline was impossible to ignore. Fintech startup PayPal's under investigation for financial fraud. Founder missing. For a moment, the entire office fell silent. The same company that had recently dominated magazine covers and business conferences now dominated the news for entirely different reasons. The report spoke of inflated user numbers, fabricated financial statements, mounting debts, and expensive lifestyles funded through borrowed money. The luxurious office, the extravagant launch party, the premium cars, everything had been built to create the image of unstoppable success. But behind that glittering image stood a business that had been collapsing quietly for months. Alok stared at the screen in disbelief. He wasn't thinking about the money. He wasn't thinking about the investors. He was remembering the frightened voice he had heard on the hotel terrace. Suddenly, every missing piece fell into place. He immediately called Karan once, twice. Again and again, every call went unanswered. His LinkedIn profile had disappeared. The company website was offline. The interviews, the applause, the admiration had vanished almost overnight. Alok lowered his phone slowly. Success had disappeared in a single news bulletin. And somewhere beneath all those headlines, he feared he had lost something far more valuable. His friend. Late that night, while rain quietly washed over the city, Alok received a message from an unknown number. There were only a few words. If you still consider him your friend, come alone. Attached was a location on the outskirts of Hyderabad. When Alok arrived, the unfinished apartment complex was almost deserted. Only one luxury sedan stood beneath a flickering streetlight. The same Mercedes that had once turned heads outside the cafe now sat covered in dust and rainwater. Its shine seemed to have disappeared along with its owner. Alok walked slowly toward the car and opened the passenger door. Inside sat Karan. The expensive suit was gone. The confident smile had vanished. Dark circles surrounded tired eyes that had clearly forgotten what peaceful sleep felt like. For nearly a minute, neither of them spoke. Only the soft rhythm of rain filled the silence. Finally, Karan whispered, I couldn't answer your calls. I didn't know which version of me you'd be calling. He stared through the rain-covered windshield before continuing. The company had potential, we had talented people, but growth was slower than investors expected. I kept telling myself, just one more loan, one more funding round, one more advertisement, one more quarter. I believed that if I made the outside look successful long enough, the inside would eventually become successful too. A bitter smile crossed his face, but every new shine demanded another. I wasn't building a company anymore, I was protecting an illusion. His voice broke. The worst part wasn't losing the business. It wasn't losing the money. It wasn't even tomorrow's investigation. It was looking into the money and realizing I no longer recognized the man looking back at me. Alok quietly placed a reassuring hand on his friend's shoulder. He offered no lecture, no judgment, only friendship. After a long silence, he spoke softly. Karan, you've lost your company. You've lost your reputation. You've lost everything the world admired. He paused. But if honesty still lives inside you, then you haven't lost the most valuable thing. Karan looked at him, confused. Alok smiled gently. You've lost the glitter. But perhaps you've just found the gold. 6 weeks passed. The media had already found a new controversy to discuss. The headlines that once screamed Karan's name had quietly disappeared. The world had moved on, as it always does. One peaceful morning, Alok sat on the small balcony of his apartment, watering the plants before leaving for work. The cool breeze carried the fragrance of wet earth after the previous night's rain. Ananya joined him with 2 cups of tea. After a few moments, she asked softly, "How is Karan?" Alok smiled. "He called yesterday. He has moved back to his parents' home in Visakhapatnam. The luxury apartment is gone. The Mercedes has been repossessed. The office has been auctioned. It will take him years to repay what he owes." Ananya remained silent. Then Alok added something unexpected. "But yesterday, he sounded happier than he did on the night of his biggest success." He looked at the rising sun before continuing. "He told me he slept peacefully for the first time in years. He said he no longer wakes up worrying about impressing investors. He no longer spends his days protecting an image. He has started helping small businesses avoid the very mistakes that destroyed his own." A gentle smile appeared on Alok's face. Perhaps losing everything he owned helped him recover everything he had lost within himself. Life has an extraordinary way of rebuilding us. Sometimes it first removes everything that doesn't belong. A few days later, Alok found himself once again walking through the familiar lanes of the old city. Almost without thinking, he stepped into Vikram Jewelers. The old craftsman recognized him immediately. Without saying a word, he opened a small velvet cloth and placed the ancestral gold chain on the wooden counter. It looked exactly the same as before. Simple, elegant, timeless. Alok smiled. "It still shines beautifully." The old jeweler looked at him and shook his head gently. "No, my son. It shines no more than it always did. We merely removed what was hiding it." Those words lingered in the silence. Then Vikramji reached into a drawer and placed another ornament beside the gold chain. It was bright, highly polished, almost dazzling. At first glance, it looked even more attractive. He gently held both ornaments over the blue flame. Within seconds, the imitation coating began to blister and darken. The glitter slowly disappeared. The ancestral gold glowed warmly, and then settled back into its quiet brilliance. The old jeweler smiled. The world often mistakes brightness for value, but brightness belongs to light. Value belongs to character. He placed the genuine chain back into Alok's hands. Then he spoke the words that Alok would remember for the rest of his life. Glitter borrows light, but gold carries its own authenticity. Alok looked at the old chain. For the first time, he wasn't thinking about jewelry. He was thinking about people. As the sun slowly set behind Hyderabad's skyline, the glass buildings reflected brilliant shades of gold. Luxury cars filled the roads. Restaurants buzzed with conversations. Office towers shimmered beneath the evening sky. Everything sparkled. Looking at the city, Alok couldn't help but smile. He finally understood. The story had never really been about gold, nor had it been about business. It had always been about people. Every one of us spends years building something: a career, a reputation, a family, a business, a dream. There is nothing wrong with success. There is nothing wrong with ambition. The danger begins only when appearance becomes more important than authenticity, when admiration becomes more important than integrity, when we spend more time polishing our image than strengthening our character. Because sooner or later, life brings every one of us to its own touchstone. For some, it is failure. For others, illness. For someone else, betrayal, loss, or disappointment. Not to punish us, but to reveal us. Success may impress the world. Character earns its trust. Titles may change. Money may come and go. People may applaud today and forget tomorrow. But character remains, and perhaps that is why the wisest people never spend their lives chasing glitter. They quietly spend their lives becoming gold. They say, all that glitters is not gold, but true character always shines. I hope you enjoyed today's Sunday story. If you did, please like, share, subscribe, and click the bell icon. Until next Sunday at 5 p.m., take care and keep discovering the spice of life.